time now for our rants and raves, starting with Dan Kennedy.
I have a rant for Philip Anschutz, who is the owner of the Washington Examiner, and I guess you could say that until earlier today he was the owner of the Weekly Standard, a venerable conservative magazine. And he just decided he wants to build his Washington Examiner brand, and one of the ways he did that is by shutting down the Weekly Standard because he felt it was a competing thing. This is pure greed. These small political magazines have always lost money. The Standard, National Review, The New Republic, The Nation, and they need somebody who's going to sort of be curators of these magazines.
Why isn't Bill Kristol?
And well, I guess he doesn't have enough money. We'll see. There has been talk that Bill Kristol might, who was the founder of the Weekly Standard, by the way, might start a new magazine and hire some of the people from the Weekly Standard. I hope he does it. It was a good magazine.
All right, Dan Lothian.
Well, I have a rant for the results of a study by the Committee to Protect Journalists that came out, and it showed that globally more than 250 journalists have been jailed. And you know, when you think about what's going on in this country and the way that people view reporters and the kind of rhetoric that's coming out around any sort of disagreement with the press, I think it really hits home when you see how this is not just a problem that is just name-calling, but has some real disturbing results. And what was even more troublesome is not just that 250 for 2018, but apparently this is the third year now that they've had more than 250. And Turkey is at the top of the list. Egypt, there have been issues in Egypt as well. This is a global problem, and I'm glad that this organization is calling attention to it, but it's a rant that
it's interesting that only
these are
murder
numbers,
was
right,
the thing that outraged people.
That outraged people, exactly. But this is a battle that reporters are having to deal with on a daily basis. And it's not just going out there and covering a story and potentially getting injured because you're in a war zone, but you are just covering a story, and because of what you say and someone deems to be fake, you end up in prison.
Or something critical in some way.
Or critical, exactly.
I think it's important to note, following up on that, that we have exported from our president the whole "you are fake news" for other countries. So a lot of these people are using it against reporters that they're jailing.
Right, Callie.
So my rave is for the Washington Post about a sad situation we brought ourselves to. They are now changing their rating system. They have a Pinocchio rating system. The highest was 4 when you have really just told a falsehood, according to the fact checkers. Now they've come up with one called the bottomless Pinocchio, which is a new rating for a lie that's just been told over and over and over and just won't stop.
Like what? Does that have an example?
Yeah, they give an example. The person that's done it more times than not, our president, and he's repeated this wall. Mexico's going to build the wall. They said the imaginary wall 86 times in the 7 months before the midterm elections, according to a database of false and misleading claims maintained by the Post. They mentioned some other things that he's shifted, alleged facts about. So they were going to give him a bottomless Pinocchio. And they said right now he is the only currently elected official who meets the standard, because nobody else has done it that many times, though there are some other statements by the president. I think it's a sad state of affairs and pretty scary.
Great branding, though. The bottomless Pinocchio.
Yeah,
I like that.
Well, I'd like for it not to be.
All right, I have a rave for the United States Senate this week, which voted in bipartisan unanimous fashion, to condemn the murder of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and also to pull United States support for Saudi Arabia in its war in Yemen against the rebels in Yemen. Now, in a way, that vote was a little bit hollow in that it was a 56-41 vote, though, however, to pull the support for the rebels, for the Saudis, because the House said, we're not going to vote on this. But still, I think these votes represent something that's very rare, a rare thing right now in Washington. Number one is bipartisanship. And number two is support for journalists. We don't see much support for journalists coming out of Washington these days. So I think it's important to note when we do get some from the United States Senate, so they get a rave this week for those two votes, unanimous resolution in support of this.
Will they vote to not trade arms with Saudi?
Well, that's little victories here, small steps, Emily.
Okay. Well, I have a rant finally tonight for management at the Boston Globe, as delivered through an infamous legal firm. They made a proposal to the union this week that would actually take away overtime, severance, seniority, job descriptions, and a whole bunch of other things. We understand that the union was actually shocked by this and insulted. And they also feel like they understand the problems within the newspaper industry and at the Boston Globe itself and are willing to work with them. They know what the problems are. But to have this really virtually draconian proposal put before them, they're shaking heads. They're going to have some kind of a protest next week. I think everybody's wearing red Globe T-shirts, BG T-shirts on Tuesday. And I think that they're basically disappointed in the word shocked was used to me, that they couldn't believe that that was the first offer.
Just before we went on the set, I posted the full text of the union's memo on dankennedy.net if anybody wants to read that.
It's pretty disturbing.
It is. It really is.
All right. We shall see what happens.